to the Leo Training Podcast with Joe DeLeo. You'll hear in-depth interviews and tips from world-class athletes, coaches, and industry-leading experts to help you train smarter and improve at what you love to do. Train smarter, get stronger, move better, race faster. Here's your host, Joe DeLeo.
We're back with episode 24 of the Leo Training Podcast. In this episode, I interview my good friend, Mack Lemmon. Mack is the general manager for Stanley Steamer Cleaner, and he is also a longtime triathlete. He's competed in numerous Ironman triathlons, both in the full and half distance. So this episode is great because Mack holds down a 50 to 60 hour a week job, all while adding in training in the range of 12 to 15 hours a week. So sit back, relax, listen to this episode, and find out how an everyday guy can balance work and training together.
Mack Lemmon, welcome to the Leo Training Podcast. Thanks for coming on the show, buddy. It's great to catch up with you and rap a little bit about training and endurance in life.
I appreciate you inviting me.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, thank you for taking the time out of your afternoon to be here. I know you just finished up a training run. So getting the miles in, baby, getting ready for your next competition. So why don't we just kick things off? Why don't you introduce yourself, talk a little bit about your background, what you're currently doing, your job and what you're training for, so everybody can get to know you a little bit better.
I guess it starts, really, I would call myself a triathlete because I do try to run, bike, and swim. But really what it comes down to is I think more of it's just a competitor. I guess when you have this energy, I just try to do certain things to just like push it in a direction. I want it to be progressive. I have a hard time sitting still, and that's a release for me, So I don't know that I've ever looked at it as being like super competitive or like something that I just have that defines who I am. But I do enjoy it a lot, and I spend a lot of time doing it, But I guess back in the day when I was younger, probably around I think I was 8. I remember I was at like a daycare center, and my buddy. His name was Wyatt. Okay. I'm not making this up. This is a real story. So he decides like there's this guy that comes in and he wants to do martial arts, and he's going to have like this class. And I remember it was like, at the time I just wanted to hang out with my buddy Wyatt, and he was going to do this class at this daycare center and that we were at. So I was like, well, I want to do it. And my mom, kind of did a little research on it, and it was in a gymnasium, and there was like 4 other kids, and there was me and him, and we're 2 of the 4. And it was probably the single most defining decision that I've made in focusing energy. I mean, focusing like what it was. I mean, in the time period that I'd started that, I was 9, and I think I kept it up until I was 16. It was right at the time when I just entered like high school, or like I was a year into high school. I stopped doing it because I had, I did the basketball, the track and field, the cross country. I was a 3-sport guy, and martial arts was just so much time. But when I was 8, 9, 10 years old, I was learning discipline, accountability, focus. And I think when you're that young at that time in your life, it's such an impacting, it decides the avenue or the direction you're going to go.
Sure.
And so that was really like the biggest thing. I would compete, we did like the fighting and stuff, but most importantly, it was about technique. It was about making sure that you did the right, you channeled the right energy. I remember there was meditation involved in it. I didn't know when I was little. I didn't know what it was. I just knew that I was supposed to do what I was told. Very military. I remember if I made a mistake, I had to do 10 push-ups every time. Like if something he would say, drop and give me 10, drop and give me 10. And you would just do it. I mean, you were kind of, in this focus group of like one-on-one, and, we grew with that. And then, I remember there was a moment where in that martial arts part, where you were like, there would be like these like 35-year-old guys that would come in, but there was a hierarchy, right? I was the older brother in the martial arts because I was there longer. So like here I am, I'm like 12 years old, and these 35-year-old guys, I'm running classes at like 13. So I'm like on stage directing for like the first 20 minutes of every class, and then the guy would take over or whatever. So you're accountable. I mean, you had to perform, you had to make sure that there was pressure, and you just learn. So that was huge. For me, basketball was something I did. I did cross country and track. I was a 4-year letter guy letter winner for those, so you're leadership there and all that stuff. You learn the concept of team and, and all that stuff, and selflessness, like giving to the team for the greater good. You weren't just the guy. Martial arts, you were the guy. Like if you were performing, you failed or you succeeded, and everybody saw you. So when you would compete, you either fought the other guy and lost, right? It was mano y mano. With basketball and cross country, and not track. Track's different, but cross country, it was like you had a team. They collect. It's like golf. They collect all the scores, and then at the end, whoever had the lowest or the top finishers, they'd rank them, and then you'd blah blah blah, and then you'd be the better team. So you could kind of hide. If you had a bad race, you still had 5 or 6 other guys that could help you out. Basketball, was something. My father was really good at basketball. I always tried to be a great basketball player because of that. I think I maybe did it for the wrong reasons, but I wasn't a great basketball player, but I worked at it. I worked really, really hard and played. I mean, I played. I ended up quitting my senior year because I wanted to, the goal was to be an all-state athlete, and I didn't care what it was in. I didn't care if it was cross country. I didn't care if it was in track or basketball. I mean, basketball would have been awesome, but I knew at that point I wasn't going to be anybody. I mean, I was just trying to make teams at my junior and senior year. I was fortunate enough that I was all state in cross country and track. So I got the opportunity to do that. So, you do those things, but I mean, the team that I was on for cross country, unreal. I mean, it was just, we were so close. We were all like brothers, so I learned a lot with that. I mean, there was a lot of adversity because you didn't want to fail that person. You just didn't want to let anybody down, and it amplified it. I mean, I think you always had it. Like I always had it because when I put my name on something, I always want to be the best. But I realized then when I was the leader of this group, if you had a bad race or something, I mean, that weighed heavy on your heart. It was tough. So, after I got out of that, I wasn't anybody that I was going to be like a Division I guy. So I decided, I was like, well, what else can we do? So I go to college. I do the college thing for a couple of years. That was a lot of fun, because you start the late nights and the drinking and whatever, kind of get out of shape. I mean, this kind of reverts back. And I know you and I have spoken about this in the past, but I mean, I grew up on Jean-Claude Van Damme. I grew up on Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean, Carl Weathers. These were the guys, man. I mean, Sly and those movies, So I was like, well, you know what I'm going to do? I want to be ripped. I want to be ripped like those guys. So like I hook up. There's a gym down the road from where I grew up. There's a guy. He was really good. He knew what he was doing. Corey Gregory. He's a fitness guy. He does all these things. He's on Activate or whatever. But anyway, at the end of the day, it was like bodybuilding. I was like, I'm going to do bodybuilding, man. I'm going to get ripped up. I'm going to be big and all this stuff. So I started doing like powerlifting competitions and everything. So in college, I remember it was like my junior year and I'm in bodybuilding. And as I'm doing the bodybuilding and everything, I realized like how much of my life it took me away from. Like you couldn't party. You couldn't stay out late. You had to hit your workouts. You had to do these things. So bodybuilding taught me like the consistency and I'll touch on that later, but I feel like that is the defining difference between great amateurs, actually any athlete, it doesn't matter, but great amateurs and just good amateurs, or even, not somebody who's just hitting the workouts, making sure that you do what you're supposed to do for the goal that you decided to achieve, right? So planning had to be very stringent with bodybuilding. Like you had to plan who you hung out with. You had to plan on how late you stayed out. You had to, around classes and the schedule. But I think that might have been the first time in my career, like of being like an athlete, that I realized that I was different. Like people would look at me and they're like, so you choose just to eat chicken breast and rice and that's
Broccoli.
what you do every day for every meal. And they're like, and they would look at me like I was, like I had two heads. And I was like, well, this doesn't make any sense, man. I want to look like Van Damme. Like why wouldn't you want to look like Van Damme? And, so those are the kind of things that you just do when you're kind of young and naive. Eventually, I got out of college, and then like it was like you're lost, you're kind of like, what do you do now? I competed and I did okay with the bodybuilding, but I kind of knew that if I wanted to be a drug-free athlete, that I was not going to be able to sustain that. So that was more about self-fulfillment. You're like, but then you realize quickly, you're like, well, you got to take drugs to get to another level, or because they didn't have like age groups. They had like natural shows, but people would cheat it and stuff. And there's like this thing, and it just wasn't for me. It's not that it was a bad thing. It just wasn't what I wanted. I think that was a little self-reflection there. So, I had a friend, his name was Ryan Mandoke. He decided he was he and I went to college together, and he was like, dude, I'm going to do an Ironman. I didn't even know what that was. I mean, I thought I knew, but I didn't really know what it consisted of, thought it was pretty cool. So I was like, well, that's cool. I was like, he was signing up for marathons, doing all these things or whatever. And my dad had run a couple marathons. So I knew what a marathon was. Columbus has where I'm from is, got a really big one. And I'd never had any aspirations of doing that. We did a half marathon when I was in high school for cross country. And I just was like, dude, why would you run more than a 5K? I just didn't even understand why you would do it. So, we had long conversations, Ryan and I, about, just what it would do, defining you, kind of, bringing you, down to the core you. I mean, and this guy did that, and then he was looking for the next thing, and then he's talking about ultra marathoning. Well, I mean, we'd have these conversations, and like, you peel it back a little bit, and you think, I want to do that. Like, I want to feel like that. I want to write a chapter. So bodybuilding mirrors a lot. It has a lot in comparative to Ironman. I mean, it's a lifestyle. You got to do a lot of planning. You got to do there's a lot of consistency involved, and you're different as an athlete. Like you're not just like this, guy that can, do things like play basketball games and be good, and play in leagues and stuff. Like you commit all this time and effort to it. So Ironman was pretty easy transition. Did an Ironman, and then I was like, well, I'm going to do, that. And then I did it, Syracuse, because we had just moved here, and I was like, well, I'm going to make that happen. And so we go out and do it. And then it was like, what next? You get done. I signed up for a 70.3. It was the first one. I never did a triathlon before that. So I was like, just jumping in. We're going to do this and see what happens. Go in there. I felt like I did pretty well for training myself. And I mean, my goal is to break 6 hours, and I did like 5.5. So obviously, Joe, I'm going to go ahead and do an ultra marathon. I'm going to do 100 miles. I'm like, let's sign up, dude. Let's just do it. My buddy Ryan was like, let's go ahead, man. Let's make it happen. So I talked to my then girlfriend, now wife. She's going to do it. My buddy Ryan's doing it. My buddy Mike's doing it. I got a friend Keith. Like, we got this whole group of people. We're just going to go out and run 100 miles. Yeah. That was the first time that I ever had my ego checked, man. I got that story could be a podcast in of itself. That was the first time that I had failed. I'm going to say quote unquote failed. I mean, I was able to accomplish like 75% of it. Like I got like 75 or 76 miles. I don't know. It's kind of delirious at the point I quit. So I don't know if it was more or less, but we'll say 76 for the podcast. And nonetheless, if anybody were to look it up, it's a DNF, but it took like 30, I think it was like 29 hours and 30 minutes. And I just completely was spent. I had this thing that we termed or like deemed like a rebirth experience, where if anybody's ever done one, okay, it's kind of like a trek, but you go out and then at the next day, like you literally run from 5 a.m. until the evening. and then you just keep going, and then the sun will go down, and then it will come back up. And you're like, what the heck is going on? You know? So I ended up, having what we deemed as the rebirth experience. And that was where, you know, you realize you've been running for a full 24 hours, and you think to yourself, I don't know that I've ever done anything consistently for this long, you know, but I got the method was like, you trained improperly. You put yourself at risk. You didn't do the right things. The next year I got a coach. I signed up for a full Ironman, and that might have been the best decision I ever made. I mean, is to have somebody kind of organize it. You know, I mean, at this point where I had signed up for that 100-miler, I thought honestly that I knew everything. I mean, really, really honestly, and I can say that, you know, I try to say that humbly, you know, it's like, I mean, anything else that I had done, I had accomplished. I mean, I just did it all on my own. You know, outside of coaches in high school, you know, I mean, you had it, and then you had the martial arts and stuff, but when you get out there and you do your thing, you know, they say they give you the ball, or they, you know, give you the thing in the rain, and you were the leader and you did it. And then, you know, you think, you know, form follows thought. If I can do this, it doesn't matter. Like, if I convince myself that I will do it, I will do it. Not with 100 miles. You got to do the right training for that. That's completely a different ball game. So since then, I think I've done, I can't remember how many Ironmans. I think there's been maybe 6 or 7 half Ironmans, 1 full Ironman, a couple. I did that. I still got to get that ultra marathon. One day I will do 100 miles. Erica keeps trying to push me back. She's like, no, don't do it. You know, but doing all those things. But, you know, so, and then there's the whole side of work. There's career, building the career and all that stuff, you know. So all this happens, the ultra marathons, the Ironmans, and all that stuff happens. I manage, what I do is a very blue collar job. I mean, I manage, but, you know, carpet cleaning, it's all customer service. You got to be available when people are available. It's 60-hour work weeks, you know, in some weeks, and then you got to balance all that stuff. And, you know, I think as an athlete, you know, you can spread yourself a little thin, or you kind of lose a definition of who you are, in certain situations. And I've always wanted to be an athlete. But, you know, I know it's not going to pay the bills. I know it's not going to sustain the lifestyle I want. I'm not that gifted. I mean, maybe the mentality's there, and the want to's there, but I've come to the realization that you don't have, you know, I'm not going to be a LeBron James. No matter how bad I want to, I'm not going to be the guy who can sustain. And I've come at peace with that, you know, because you've ended up having to have those conversations with yourself after the end of certain events. So you get a job and you work and you do the best you can. And I had, my father and my mother were very good mentors with that. They showed me the definition and meaning of hard work. And, you know, it's basically what you do, you know? So that's kind of the backstory, I guess, with everything. But yeah, that's where we are now. So here we are.
Awesome, man. Well, you've definitely, you know, participated and competed in a lot of different sporting events. So you got a lot of different experience to draw, from. So just to kind of, provide a little bit more context so people get it. So you're holding down a 60-hour-a-week job,
Yep.
You know, managing for Stanley Steamer, carpet cleaning company, and training for. Are you doing just a half this year, or are you going to do a full Ironman?
No. This year I decided there's still some things up in the air. We just bought another steamer. So I'm going in with Jeff. That he is my boss technically, but we decided we're going to be partners on the second one. So I've got one in Pennsylvania and then one here in New York. And then, I mean, so it's amped up, but yeah, at the end of the day, it's really.
So you're holding down a 60-hour-a-week job and you're getting in around 15 to 18 hours of training a week?
So the goal's 18. But it turns out to be more like maybe 14 to 16. I just hope Mike doesn't listen to this podcast, but yeah, I'm trying my best, So
how do you, so just, what's a typical, so people get a little bit more perspective. So what's a typical day? Like what time do you wake up? How do you get your training in around your work, around your job?
Right. So the job itself demands, first of all, I got customers that I got to service, right? And then I've got guys that that work for me that need my help. So it could be 5:30 at night and they're like, "Hey man, truck's broken down. You got to run up here, help me fix it up, whatever." So we've got systems in place to help it happen, but it might require that I leave. So I've decided, I'm like, listen, if I'm going to get in my workout, I have to do it before I go to work. Work starts for me at 6:30. So I am up on any given day at 4 a.m. I do a workout between 4:30 and 5:30 or 6, depending, like if the workout's prescribed as an hour and a half and I have to do the hour and a half, then, I give myself a little bit more time. So I wake up at 4 o'clock. I do a workout. I go to work. I work until probably 6. Most of the time it's 6, probably 6:30. If I'm out early, it's 6. Get home. And then I probably have another 40 or 50 minute workout that I have to do then. And then I eat dinner. And then I try to watch, Netflix with Erica, hang out a little bit. And then we wake up and we do it again. And every day is the same. But we go in a rotation where it's like you're off. You work Monday through Friday 3 weeks in a row. Then you do 2 weekends on Saturday. So you work 6 days for 2 weeks straight, and then you go bounce back. So it'd be 5 for 3 weeks, 6 for 2, 5 for 3 weeks, 6 for 2. And we just rotate like that. And you have to get to bed. I probably get to bed around 9:30, and then I wake up at 4 o'clock, and then I just do the same thing over and again. And it seems to work. But there's every once in a while, something happens and you gotta adjust, you're not a superhero. I'm not Van Damme. I know that.
That's a pretty impressive schedule you're holding down there, throughout the Monday through Friday and stuff. And then, you have some weekends where you have a little bit more time, and then you have those weeks where you're putting in that 6th day. So it's a big commitment on your part for sure, in terms of time being invested, as well as the energy expenditure.
Oh yeah. Mentally and physically, it could be exhausting. I think there's a lot to say with like just being able to manage, like, both. Mental stress. I read a book, by Mack, right? The Iron Man guy, right?
Yeah.
And he was like saying in his book, he's like, physical stress and emotional stress are one and the same. You can wear yourself out. And that's something that I think was important for me for understanding, was that you got to manage both. So you could have had a really stressful day at work and you might need to back off, a little bit or adjust. And, the coach I'm using now, the coach that I'm using now is very good with that. He's just like, "Yeah, man, we'll just adjust. This happens. We'll change the plan a little bit. We'll just work around what's going on at that time." But, then it gets back to the consistency. It's just hit the watts, just hit the runs, just hit this, just do what you can. And it should all fall into place. Maybe you don't crack the top 10%, or the top 10 finishers, and that was your goal. But, if you had, bought a business and you had to work, harder, more hours, and all these things, or the race or the heat or the, nutrition, or the you didn't hit the workouts the way you wanted to, that stuff will just happen. But it doesn't mean you stop. You understand what I'm saying? It doesn't mean that you're just like, well, I got too much going on, so I'm just not even going to sign up. That's not what it's about. It's about just managing the expectations. It's like, I remember in 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, I had, raced the same course in Syracuse for the 70.3. And I can tell you there are 4 different results and 4 different, I was exposed to 4 different elements in each one of those races. And you just have to be prepared, not consumed with, well, did I hit all my workouts? You're not going to hit them all. If you're going to work 60 hours a week, you just have to realize that's part of the game. I mean, that's just what you've decided to do. If you want to be a professional triathlete, well, now you got to change your thinking a little bit. You know, maybe you have the ability to put in more time, you know, but I've already, you know, decided that this is what's going to pay the bills. Stanley Steamer, right? Working for this company and buying into it. And then this stuff is what I do to express energy, you know, like it satisfies the competitive nature. It satisfies the accomplishments and the, you know, the consistency and the planning. It makes me feel good. You know, it makes me feel like I'm productive, you know, those kind of things.
So, you know, a couple of takeaways from my point of view is, one, you're a great example that it's definitely possible to, one, be successful and, you know, be able to train, successfully while holding down a demanding job. And then two is, you know, just sort of the organization, and consistency. You know, that's something that you keep mentioning, but it's really important. You know, you have a really set routine, that allows you to kind of just wake up and just kind of, you know, fall right into, exactly what you need to be getting done.
Well, and here's the thing. I mean, people are going to look, I mean, I don't know, maybe some of your followers are going to listen and it's going to make sense to them. But I guess, like, I run into people all the time. They go, what time you wake up? Oh yeah. Well, that's because you don't have this, or that's because of that, or that's because I'm going, listen, I've made a decision. That's the deciding factor. Okay. I've made a choice and I understand what I have to do to satisfy, you know, that choice. I understand fully that waking up at 4 a.m. is a little extreme when it comes down to normal day, but normal stops at Ironman, first of all. So if you decide to do that, you're already deciding that I am not normal. Okay. And that's where it comes back to the whole thing where I first recognized it with bodybuilding, that I was a little different. And you don't have to be an Ironman and you don't have to be a bodybuilder or an ultramarathoner to be successful at anything. You can do it. But I do believe that once you make a choice on what you want, you have to do what's necessary to fulfill the goal. And the goal can be whatever. It could be to make $150,000 a year, or it could be to own your own business, or it could be to, I don't know, buy that house or move to this place. But it's crazy because sometimes I think when you look at it this way, I mean, it's really just this clear. There is a point when you were a kid and you decided, this is what I want to do with my life. This is what I want to be. And it could have been as ridiculous. Like, I thought I was going to play for the Chicago Bulls. You know, I was going to be, that's what I wanted to do. Well, I will tell you this much. Something happened that changed my course during me growing up. Okay. If I were to focus and be consistent and decide that every day I am going to work a little closer to the goal. And let's say the goal was to play for the Chicago Bulls. I don't know. But let's say the goal was to own my own business. And I made a decision to do that, something that would encourage the result every day. I would eventually accomplish that. I believe that wholeheartedly. So when I wake up at 4 a.m, listen, if I could wake up at 6, I would, but I can't. I can't possibly get my workout in and be to work on time without waking up at 4. And I can't possibly hit 15 hours a week without waking up at 4. There's just no way around it. You have to do it. And I think when it comes down to it, if it's not worth it to you, then you shouldn't be doing that. You know, you should be focusing your energy somewhere else and be real with yourself and understand that. I still have obligations. I mean, my wife still needs me to do things. I have home projects that I have to do, the honey-do list. I've got, things that I want to do outside of Ironman. It's not that I just work and just do Ironman and that's it. I mean, I think I live a life that's pretty bland, but at the same time, it's what you want to do because that's the goal now. So yeah, waking up at 4 a.m. and working all day and then training again at night, people look at you and they go, man, I don't know. But see, sitting around drinking beers, on the weekends and going to barbecues and stuff, like that never was like what I was like. I'd rather be doing that.
Sure.
If I'd rather be doing that, I'd be doing that. You know what I mean? I would do that. So it's that energy, you recognize.
So, that's some great points you make there about, staying focused, and committing to the goal at hand. And then the other thing you touched on kind of briefly a couple of minutes ago was, you're getting ready to kind of also take another big step outside of the athletic arena and, really pretty dive into the deep end of the pool on the entrepreneurial end. So, you'll be a partner in one of the Stanley Steamer franchises.
Yeah.
So that's kind of going to be adding to your responsibility list. So is that something you want to talk about? Kind of balancing that into the equation, so to speak?
Yeah, absolutely. So like Stanley Steamer for me has been the way that it's the only job I've ever had since I was 22, and I'm 32 now. So you're reaching around, maybe it's 23. I think it's like 9 years I've been working. But at the end of the day, I mean, like, look, you got this layout. I mean, fortunately I was able to hook up with Jeff there, and he's been a great mentor for me. I've always been able to find mentors and things that I've done. Martial arts and then, basketball. My father was a great impact on me as far as, hard work and all that. And I mentioned my mother, those two, they just never, they let you kind of fall on your face. Jeff's been able to do the same thing as far as Steamer was concerned. But when it comes down to the end of the day, when your name is on something, I mean, like, I just hit it as hard as I can. I mean, I've decided, all my friends told me I was like Iron Man and like 4 a.m. You're crazy. You're working 60 hours a week and you make $32,000 a year and you do this and that, whatever. And I'm going, yeah, man, but listen, if I work harder than all these people, I'm getting recognized. I mean, of all the guys, when I was first starting, I got placed in one of the most stressful markets. Well, that wasn't because of the fact that they just randomly decided that some kid from Ohio could move to Connecticut and do it. When my friends found out that I was moving from Connecticut or from Ohio to Connecticut, they were like, what are you doing? Like, you're going to make, I think I got a pay bump to like 40. I think my rent was like $1,200 a month in Connecticut, I'm like, I didn't even have enough money to really do anything outside of working. So I just hit it as hard as I could hit it. And I just knew if I worked, it would work. I just knew it. I was like, if I work really hard, it's going to work. Long and short, I moved from Connecticut after about 3 or 4 years, and then we go up to Syracuse, where I've been here for the past, I think we just hit 5 years in 5 years in May will be for me. So it'll be here in a couple weeks. And then, you buy another franchise or whatever, but you earn that based on the work ethic and the ownership that you take of it. But I don't know. I mean, my father always told me that. He's like, it's going to work if you'll work. And I want to own it. I mean, hell, I go through the torment of when a customer's upset or something. Or my guys are disappointed or something. I take so much, like it weighs heavy on my heart. You might as well own it. The only difference between what my boss does and what I do is he cuts the checks and makes the checks, right? So I'm like, well, I need that. I'm going to get that position. That's the goal, to attain another one, to be a partner, to be, to do those things. So, yeah, I mean, it's really endless when you start to open up your mind and quit living like within this, like these limitations, how real that carpet cleaning can actually provide where it's at. You look back and you talk to your friends now from Ohio, and you think, and they're like, man, I would never even have known you could do that, with cleaning carpet. And that's where he started. Cleaning carpet. And people are like, what are you doing? You have a college degree. I'm like, yeah, well, I mean, you gotta make money somehow, right? So.
I love it. But you're committed to the goal and putting in hard work and just, putting in your time in the trenches, and good things happen.
I mean, it's, all intentions are good things, so we work hard, but like I said, you go back to that. I think that would probably be the confidence. I have a guy that's next to me, on my, like in my boss. And then there's another a guy, Kevin, that I work with. And these guys both care as much as I do. It's easy to be, sandwiched in between two other guys that care as much as you care, so you just keep feeding off each other.
Awesome, man. Awesome. I love the positivity and the energy. So kind of let's switch gears a little bit. Why don't you talk a little bit about training, right? And so, obviously you're training for triathlon, so your time is split across 3 disciplines: swim, bike, run.
Yep.
So why don't you talk a little bit about, how you're breaking that up and, the intensity that you're training at, so kind of people get an idea. And then why don't you also talk about, diet and stuff, because I know your wife, Erica, plays a big part in making sure that you're eating well and healthy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so I guess I'll start with this. The training is all laid out. It's my job. I understand what my job is. My role is to hit it. It's just to do what you're told. I mean, really. And then when you go to my wife, it's the same thing. Eat what I give you and stay away from what I don't. So really, I'm not the expert when it comes down to like my training, but I will talk about the importance of your supporting cast, the people around you. I don't try to surround myself with just people who are like-minded, but I definitely don't spend a lot of time around people who don't share in the same passions. It doesn't have to be Ironman. My wife is not at all into swimming. She's scared of water, right? Doesn't want anything to do with it. Tried it, gave it a run, didn't like it. Doesn't understand why you would run for, well, maybe running, but like riding her bike. Like, why would you do something for 12 hours? Like, I just don't understand why you would even do that. But that's what she does. But we've still been able to manage, a relationship, but at the same time, it comes down to, really someone laying out the workouts. Mike lays the workouts out for me. I just hit them. Erica is probably, she's the 4th discipline. Okay. They call it swim, bike, run, the 3 disciplines of triathlon. There's the little thing called nutrition. And I think it's what holds a lot of people back. She is constantly looking up recipes, constantly trying new things. Now she's a vegan. I mean, it's all grass fed, all anything I eat with meat, but so she's still okay with that. And it's not for any, like stance of like, I don't know, like whatever. It's not motivated by some sort of like choice, but at the end of the day, it really has to do. There's a dog. I'm gonna shut the door, but it's really motivated by just her passion and her want to really just, like know as much as she can. That's just what she is about. So her and I are, pretty good when it comes down to that. I just eat what she gives me, but it's all vegan based, I'm about 90% plant, tofu, you got your stuff in there. What else? I don't even know that. Tempeh. I mean, she throws everything at me, dude. A lot of chilies, a lot of, vegan chilies, a lot of, wraps, and she does a lot of soups, and she does a lot of I do fish every so often. I do that about once a week, stuff like that. So nutrition is a huge part into it. But I'm gonna be honest with you right now. I'm gonna be honest with everybody that's listening to your podcast. If you don't eat the right fuel, you will suffer the consequences later. If I drink beer, and I'm going to drink one tonight, I'm not even ashamed of it. But if I drink beer, I can't afford to do it during the week because I cannot wake up at 4 a.m. It's just, I feel groggy. It bogs me down. It keeps me, if I stay up too late, if I don't get enough sleep, if I don't make those conscious decisions during my day, I will suffer for it. Food is singly the most important thing for sustainability. If I want to sustain operating at, we'll just call it 75 hours a week of work because of the job and the training, then I have to fuel my body with premium fuel. I can't do it. I can't afford to have, snacks on Oreos, and I can't, I could kill boxes of cereal if you let me. I can't have candy. I gotta eat the right things, and that's going to help keep me balanced enough that I'm going to be able to sustain it without injury, without sleep deprivation, without having issues with, like even in our relationship, if I don't eat, I get hangry. And if I get hangry, that doesn't help my relationship. So those are the kind of things that happen. So, that would probably be what I would say, but she might be she's the background manager, the one that really doesn't get a lot of the credit, but is probably the reason that I'm successful with what I'm doing.
No, I think that's a huge, huge point you made there about, one, supporting cast, and two, about the impact of a high quality diet, regardless of, whether it's Mediterranean or vegan or vegetarian or paleo, whatever. But the emphasis is definitely on, clean quality foods.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's what it is.
All right. So let's move to the rapid fire. We got some questions to ask Mack Lemmon here. All right. So Mack, given your current knowledge level and experience, if you could go back in time, what advice would you give yourself 10 years ago?
Stay focused. Stay focused on the goal. What do you want to do? And just work towards it every day. I think just like anybody else, you have a tendency to get distracted by temptation. And that temptation could be in certain. So, I think if you decided that you wanted to be something, be it fully, wholehearted, honestly. Take a look in the mirror, understand who you are, understand what you want, and make decisions around that goal. That'd be what I wish I could tell myself a long time ago, and not take it too seriously.
Right.
Just relax. It's supposed to be fun.
Mm-hmm.
All this stuff. I don't care if it's playing basketball with your friends or if, I'm just so intense, but, I guess maybe it'd be easier to back off of it than amplify it rather,
For sure. Okay. So what's your favorite strength training exercise? Do you strength train?
Yeah.
All right. So what's your favorite strength training exercise?
So the CrossFit thing's really cool. I think the Olympic lifting. I like it because it's all the planes, all the different things. It's very structured, but at the same time, but really, if it came down to it, I'm a sucker for squat, and I don't know. There's a lot going on with that. Deadlifting and squatting are probably my two favorite things to do. I've always been pretty bad at them though, but I try really hard to do it. But yeah, those would probably be my favorite. Anything with legs, I really like. Maybe awesome. Because most people don't do it. Most of the guys who are all the bros out there aren't doing their legs. So,
all right. How's your training today changed compared to 10 years ago? So what are you doing differently?
A lot more cardio. A lot more cardio. When I was doing the bodybuilding thing, it was more about, explosive, gaining weight, eating a lot, those kind of things. Mm-hmm. Now it's more geared on, heart rate. It's geared on power and wattage. With my bike, it's geared on, those kind of things. Swimming and stuff. So it's a lot more fun, I think, to do what I'm doing now. I'm outside more. I'm enjoying, being outside, getting tan, rather than being in a booth like I was when I was doing bodybuilding. Though the winters are tough, but at the end of the day, it's a lot more cardio and it's a lot more, fitness in the sense of sustainability. It's not just explosive.
Awesome. So what injury have you had and how did it change your training?
Injury. I think injury is a part of it all, at the end of the day, but I guess when, in 2000, was it 14? I think it was 14. I crashed my bike and I bruised my hip pretty bad. I'm still dealing with that. And that wasn't anything caused from training. That was more of the accident, when I was racing. But it's been something that I've been working towards, trying to fix. I've even consulted Leo training for this, as well. So, those kind of things. But, I still go. I do a lot of I do massage. I do, I go to a chiropractor. I work with him, Dave, a couple times a month, and try to do those things. But injury is more about the prevention. But I would say the hip has kind of turned me on to like, hey, bro, as you're getting a little older, you're 32 now, so you gotta start taking care of who you are. You can't just get through it like you did when you were 22.
Yeah, there's a little more maintenance under the hood required.
Yeah, right.
All right. So on that note, so what's one thing that high school athletes should be doing more of to complement their training and their health?
Warming up and cooling down.
Love it.
Not just going in and doing it. I mean, like I remember I would just show up and I would just start. And then when I was done, I would leave. That's what I would do. And I can imagine that most people would do the same thing. I mean, I don't know but the coaches out there, maybe people in general, I feel like maybe it's catching on where there's more people that are focusing on, warming up, like making sure that you've done mobility and you've done stretching and you've done those things. But maybe that's because I'm researching it more and I just feel like that's what it is, making friends like you and stuff that are very disciplined in those things. And networking with people that know what they're talking about. But at the end of the day, that's what I mean, mobility, man, making sure that your muscles move the way that they're supposed to. And I mean, it's completely changed my thinking I guess I've evolved as an athlete from what I used to think when I was, like 10 years ago to now. And that was with the bodybuilding. It was just like, squat, bench and military press and all these things. And now you're like, man, I probably shouldn't have done that. Like every day, I probably should have, the 2 days on, 2 days off thing or whatever you do, or the 3 sets of 10 and go heavy as heck and all that stuff. But, mobility, just making sure that the muscles all work in the sequence they're supposed to, right? Am I right there? I don't know. That's what I would do.
Yeah. Movement quality and, having control, is huge.
Right.
Owning the movement. Yeah. What's your best tip to improve recovery from a training session?
Oh man. I mean, rest, eat, just relax, it just those things where, like with Mike specifically with his workouts. I mean, there's certain days where I feel great and I'm like, man, I could have gone more. I could have gone harder, but I just do what he tells me to do. Because I know that something's coming, something's around the corner. And then, I don't know, man, I try to eat a lot. I just believe a lot in nutrition. I think that what we put in our bodies is what keeps us healthy. It's medicine. I even think back when you were like a little kid and like, or maybe even see like a mother with her child and, he's putting his hands or she's putting her hands in her mouth and everything. And you get that out of your mouth and you're going to get sick. And you think about it and you're like, if you're eating crap, you're probably going to get sick. I don't know. I just think it makes sense. If it goes in your mouth, it's probably going to have some sort of result there. But I think with recovery, it's going to come down to, I do turmeric. I do, some things, aminos, I'll take amino acids. I do some stuff with, just making sure that, you're rolling out, foam rolling, like I said, massage. I do, once a month. I do my chiropractor a couple times a month, those kind of things, but following the plan, sticking to the workout, not just freelancing it and cowboying it up and saying, I'm just going to do what I want to do today and make it happen, like lifting weights when I probably shouldn't be, communicating, those kind of things. So yeah, that'd be the answer. Oh, did I give you the answer? I hope I gave you the answer.
Yeah, you gave me the answer. There's a lot in there. Recovery, sleep, nutrition, taking care of the body, making sure if you need to get some, manual therapy and massage done or adjustment. It's all.
You're trying to rapid fire me, Joe, and I'm rapid firing you and your audience.
No. This is good. All right. Final one. What's one book everyone should read?
I thought about this. I got the answer when I was running today.
All right.
He's going to ask me the question, and I need to have the prepared answer. So I'm only going to give you one, and it was Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers, and it comes back to, it talks about the 10,000 hours and consistency, if you can read that book, you will understand the importance of consistency, and you'll understand why I'm having that conversation with myself as a teenager.
Love it. Love it, man. Awesome. Well, Mack, this has been a blast. I've learned a ton from you throughout the course of our friendship, and definitely, very lucky to have you as a friend and confidant and stuff. So appreciate you taking the time to come on, share your experiences and knowledge, and thank you very much, my friend.
Yeah, you're welcome, man. I'm so happy that you asked me to do it. I feel like this was a lot of fun, and I would do it 100 times.
I know you would. You definitely got the endurance for it. That's for sure.
Yeah,
no
that's
doubt.
right. Yeah.
No doubt. So just hang on the line. Let me give you a proper goodbye, and we'll wrap up.
All right, brother.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Leo Training Podcast. If you did, please take a moment, head on over to iTunes and drop in a 5-star review. Next week, our guest will be Master Strong First Instructor and Strongman, Iron Tamer, Dave Whitley.
Thanks for listening to the Leo Training Podcast. Subscribe and get even more expert training tips at www.leotraining.io.